India has suspended visa services for Canadian citizens. The country's foreign ministry has said this is because of security threats to its staff and consulates in Canada. Meanwhile, Canada will reduce the number of its diplomats in India over security concerns. Ottawa says that some of its diplomats have received threats on social media platforms. Indian gangster Lawrence Bishnoi has claimed responsibility for the killing of Khalistani terrorist Sukhdev Singh. He was killed in Canada during an inter-gang clash. Reports say he was also on the Indian National Investigation Agency or the NIA's most wanted list for terror and criminal activities. Singh's death comes in the backdrop of escalating tensions between India and Canada. On Tuesday, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said his country was investigating India's suspected involvement in the murder of pro-Khalistan leader Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Explosions were heard after Russia launched a missile attack on Kiev on Thursday. The city's mayor has said that 7 people, including a 9-year-old girl, have been injured. Across Ukraine, the air attack injured at least 18 people. An infrastructure facility and several non-residential buildings were also damaged. Poland has said that it will no longer send arms to Ukraine. It will instead focus on arming itself with more modern weapons. This was just a few hours after Warsaw summoned Kyiv's ambassador amid the ongoing grain exports row. Tensions between the two nations were sparked by Poland's ban on Ukrainian grain imports. Poland has been one of Ukraine's staunchest supporters after Russia invaded it last year. It is one of Kyiv's main weapon suppliers. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky confronted Russia directly at the UN Security Council. He faced a Russian official for the first time ever since the war broke out. Zelensky called Russia's invasion of his country as criminal. He also urged that Moscow be stripped of its UN veto power. Replying to him, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov defended his country's use of veto power in the UNSC. Lavrov described it as quote-unquote legitimate tool of international relations. Pakistan will hold its general elections in the last week of January next year. This is according to the Election Commission of Pakistan. The polls were initially scheduled for later this year. However, they were delayed due to the fresh marking of constituencies by the ECP. The Commission says a final list of the new constituencies will be ready and published by November. Azerbaijan has begun talks with ethnic Armenians from the Nagorno-Karabakh region. Russia is brokering the talks between the two parties. A representative from Russia's peacekeeping contingent was present at the talks. Meanwhile, Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan said that Armenia needs to be quote-unquote free of conflict. He said this in an address to citizens on the National Independence Day. Iran's parliament has passed a new hijab and chastity bill. It lays out punishments for women who violate Iran's mandatory dress code. For women, unacceptable covering has been defined as quote-unquote revealing or tight clothing. Women will also be punished for wearing clothes that show parts of the body lower than the neck or above the ankles. Those dressed inappropriately face up to 10 years in jail under Iran's new bill. Meanwhile, Iran says it has no issue with the UN nuclear watchdog's inspection of its nuclear sites. The country's president, Ebrahim Raisi, said this in a news conference on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. Raisi added that quote-unquote trustworthy inspectors could continue their work in Iran. This comes days after Tehran barred multiple inspectors from the International Atomic Energy Agency or IAEA. They were assigned to oversee Iran's atomic activities. Australian lawmakers have called for the release of Julian Assange. They have urged US officials to drop their attempts to extradite Assange from a British prison and bring him to the US. The Australian lawmakers said that Assange had been punished enough and that the charges against him should be dropped. Julian Assange is the founder and editor of media company WikiLeaks. He is wanted in the US over charges of leaking confidential US military records through his publication. 4 people have died and 5 more were injured due to an explosion at a gas pipeline in Romania. The fire has since been extinguished and the injured were taken to the hospital. Investigators are looking into the causes of the explosion. Last month, dozens of people were injured after explosions rocked a gas station in the country. In climate news, UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has watered down the country's commitments to tackle climate change. Sunak said that his government remains committed to its legally binding target of reaching net zero emissions by 2050. However, he also said that the government can afford to slow down its progress because it is ahead of other countries. Sunak said the step aims to ease quote-unquote unacceptable costs on British households. Meanwhile, Britain's Interior Minister Suella Braverman has said that the country needs a pragmatic approach to reaching net zero emissions. She said the UK cannot save the planet by bankrupting British people. Braverman's comments came right before Sunak's announcement. She added, and I quote, "We want to achieve climate goals in a way that does not impose undue and disproportionate cost on families." People in Australia's Sydney made their way to Bondi Beach as they face unseasonably hot spring conditions. Extreme fire danger warnings are in place for the Greater Sydney region. It is home to more than 5 million people. On Tuesday, Australia's Bureau of Meteorology declared that an El Niño weather pattern is underway. Australian engineers and technology scientists have urged the Albanese government to wipe out the country's climate footprint by 2035. That is 15 years earlier than the government proposed. The scientists called upon the government to set a goal of reaching net zero emissions in 12 years. Engineers say that this can be done with existing low-carbon technology. Australia's Foreign Affairs Minister Penny Wong said in an interview that the country has a fossil fuel-intensive economy and is working to change that. A violent tornado wreaked havoc in China's eastern province of Jiangsu. 1 person was killed. The tornado sent debris flying, power lines collapsed, and many cars were overturned. A water sprout was spotted swirling over Lake Michigan in the US state of Indiana. The National Weather Service has said that September and October are months that are most likely to witness water sprouts. Water sprouts are tornadoes that occur over a body of water. UN Secretary General has said that humanity has opened the gates to hell by allowing the climate crisis to worsen. Antonio Guterres made the statement at the United Nations. He added that the world is decades behind in the transition to clean energy. He also called upon nations to make up for time lost to foot dragging. Spain's Environment Minister has said that early warning systems are needed to help the world cope with realities of climate emergency. While speaking to a news publication, Teresa Rebecca said that calamities have laid bare challenges that the planet faces. Experts say that using cellular networks to deliver early warnings of disasters could help save lives. This is because data suggests that about 95% of the world's population has access to mobile broadband networks, and nearly 75% of the population owns a mobile phone. A new report ranking climate change misinformation gave social media platform X the lowest spot. The Climate of Misinformation report analyzed Meta, Pinterest, YouTube, TikTok, and X. It looked at their efforts to mitigate inaccurate information such as climate denialism. The report pointed out that X failed to meet almost any organization's criteria for climate misinformation policies. Moving on to business and tech, the US Federal Reserve held interest rates steady in its September meeting. The central bank held its interest rate in the range of 5.25 to 5.50%. However, it has projected a potential rate hike by the end of this year. Fed officials expect the range to reach 5.50 to to 5.75%. Official data shows Britain's high inflation rate fell unexpectedly in August. The consumer price index dropped slightly to 6.7% from July's 6.8%. Economists had predicted that the UK's CPI would rise to 7%. Britain's Office for National Statistics said the fall was driven by a drop in hotel prices and airfares. Food prices also rose at a slower pace, which offset a jump in fuel prices. Japanese conglomerate Toshiba says its takeover by Japan Industrial Partners has succeeded. Toshiba had initially accepted the buyout bid in March this year. The deal is valued at $14 billion and has now been backed by enough shareholders. The takeover paves the way for Toshiba to go private. Irish carrier Ryanair faces a probe by the Italian Competition Authority. Regulators say they are investigating the company over the possible abuse of a dominant position in the market. The Italian watchdog suspects that the airline exerted power over sectors such as hotels and car rental. Ryanair allegedly limited the ability of travel agencies to sell its tickets as part of travel packages with accommodation and other services. Alan Joyce, the former CEO of Australia's Qantas Airways, earned 872% more than he did last year. This was despite him having to take an early retirement from the company. Joyce advanced his retirement amid a lawsuit accusing Qantas of selling tickets on thousands of already cancelled flights. Despite this, he walked away with $21.4 million. However, the airline said that it was cutting and withholding the former CEO's hefty bonuses amid damaging lawsuits. Bankrupt crypto exchange FTX has sued the parents of founder Sam Bankman-Fried. The company has accused them of enriching themselves with company funds. The FTX lawsuit alleges that Joseph Bankman and Barbara Fried accepted a $10 million cash gift and a $16 million luxury property in the Bahamas. The bankrupt crypto firm is now led by John Ray. Ray is an expert in helping companies recover assets after bankruptcy. Bank of America will boost its minimum hourly wage to $23 in October. This comes as the company heads towards raising hourly pay to $25 by the year 2025. The pay raise translates to a minimum annual salary of almost $48,000 for full-time employees. Ford says it was not happy with Britain's decision to rethink its plans for electric vehicles. This week, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is expected to modify some climate measures. These measures include pushing back its current plan to ban new petrol and diesel car sales by 2030 to 2035. Ford said dropping the 2030 deadline would be a mistake. The automaker has hinted that this could put its further investments in the country at risk. Reports say India's Ola Electric plans to file regulatory papers for its initial public offering or IPO. This could come before the end of October this year. The company aims to raise up to $700 million through the IPO. Ola is reportedly targeting the listing for early January or February next year. Unions at Apple stores in France have called for a strike on Friday and Saturday. They are demanding better pay and better working conditions. The strike coincides with the launch of Apple's new iPhone 15 in France. Problems are mounting for the tech giant in the country. Last week, the French government suspended sales of iPhone 12 handsets. This was after tests showed that the model breaches radiation exposure limits. Moving to sports, the International Cricket Council or ICC has picked 3 US venues for the Men's T20 World Cup. The American cities that will host cricket matches are Dallas, Miami, and New York. This is the first time that T20 Cricket World Cup matches will be played in the United States. West Indies are the designated co-hosts for the tournament. The T20 World Cup will begin next year in the month of June. In football, Arsenal beat PSV Eindhoven 4-0 in the UEFA Champions League. Arsenal had a commanding first half with the Gunners finding the back of the net 3 times. In the second half, Arsenal captain Martin Odegaard scored in the 70th minute to seal a comfortable win. The Gunners are off to a flying start after a 6-year absence from the Champions League. Bayern Munich beat Manchester United 4-3 in a high-scoring Champions League thriller yesterday. Leroy Sané and Serge Gnabry scored for Bayern in the first half. United attempted a comeback with a goal in the 49th minute. But just 4 minutes later, Harry Kane restored Bayern's 2-goal cushion. Kane scored his first goal for Bayern via a penalty. Casemiro's late double for United fell just short as Bayern also scored in injury time, closing the match at 4-3. Real Madrid just scraped past FC Union Berlin in their Champions League bout yesterday. The game was scoreless at the end of 90 minutes at the Santiago Bernabeu. But midfielder Jude Bellingham finally found the net 4 minutes into injury time, helping Real Madrid claw out a victory. In Major League Soccer, Inter Miami beat Toronto 4-0 in a one-sided game. However, star player Lionel Messi had to leave the match in the 37th minute due to an injury. Only minutes later, Messi's former Barcelona teammate Jordi Alba also left the field due to a strain. Inter Miami's coach says both Messi and Alba will skip the club's next match on Sunday. The Indian men's football team beat Bangladesh 1-0 at the Asian Games. Captain Sunil Chhetri scored for India in a penalty in the 85th minute. With the win, India have kept their hopes alive of staying in the tournament. They will next play Myanmar on the 24th of September. The Indian women's cricket team has entered the semi-final at the Asian Games. This was after their match against Malaysia was called off due to heavy rainfall. India batted first and posted a target of 174 runs in their 20-over innings. Malaysia did not get a chance to bat due to rain. Now, India have advanced due to securing higher points in the group stage. At the Asian Games, India beat South Korea 3-2 in men's volleyball. It was a nail-biting match for India against the 4-time Asian Games volleyball winners, South Korea. The match lasted almost 2 hours and 40 minutes. This is the second consecutive win for the men in blue. India have now qualified for the volleyball knockout stage. In Formula One, McLaren have extended their contract with Australian rookie Oscar Piastri. This is till the end of the year 2026. McLaren's manager says the 22-year-old has had an impressive first season. The debutant Piastri is currently ranked 11th in the F1 Championship. In gymnastics, American Simone Biles has qualified for the World Championships for the 6th time. She has become the only woman from the US to qualify for the tournament this many times. The World Championship will be held in Belgium and the tournament begins on the 30th of September. 90-year-old English actor Michael Caine might retire after his upcoming film The Great Escaper. In an interview, he said that he's sort of retired now as he cannot even walk properly anymore. In a career spanning over decades, Caine has done more than 100 films. Some of them include The Dark Knight and The Prestige. Singer Liam Payne was discharged from hospital on Wednesday after being treated for severe kidney pain. Payne's girlfriend, Kate Cassidy, confirmed the news on a social media platform. Payne was on a trip to Italy with Cassidy when his health suddenly deteriorated. The 30-year-old singer was immediately rushed to a hospital in Milan. In August this year, Payne had to cancel his tour in South America. Supermodel Naomi Campbell has opened up about drug abuse in her early modeling days. Campbell made this revelation in a docu-series titled The Supermodels. The 53-year-old model said she turned to cocaine to cope up with childhood trauma and the death of fashion designer Gianni Versace. After battling drug abuse for 5 years, Campbell decided to go to rehab. Actor Tom Hanks has said that he's ready to scrub toilets to get a ticket to the moon. Hanks had reportedly turned down Amazon co-founder Jeff Bezos' offer to travel to space in his Blue Origin spacecraft. In a recent interview, Hank said, and I quote, "I'll do all the work. I'll clean the toilet, I'll serve the food, I'll fold the clothes, I'll store the gear." The Writers Guild of America, or WGA, an alliance of motion pictures and television producers, or AMPTP, held negotiations on Wednesday. WGA represents striking writers, while AMPTP represents some major Hollywood studios. Talks hinted towards a possible agreement. However, if it does not materialize, the strike is poised to persist until the end of the year. The Writers Guild of America has been on strike since May this year. American comedian Jimmy Kimmel had to cancel his upcoming live show after he tested positive for COVID-19. Kimmel was working on a show called Strike Force 3 with his fellow comedians Jimmy Fallon and Stephen Colbert. Kimmel took to social media platform X and wrote that he did not want to make his friends sick. American actor Sherry Shepherd had to pause shooting for her talk show after testing positive for COVID-19. Her talk show called Sherry was one of the few shows that came back amid the ongoing SAG-AFTRA and WGA strikes. Shepherd said that she looks forward to coming back strong to resume shooting for the show. Streaming platform Paramount Plus recently removed American comedian Russell Brand's stand-up comedy show. This comes after 4 women claimed that Brand sexually assaulted, raped, and emotionally abused them. Previously, YouTube revoked monetization rights on the Brand's channel, citing a violation of the creator responsibility policy. Brand has dismissed all allegations. Oprah Winfrey has questioned the use of Ozempic for weight loss, calling it just an easy way out. She said this on her talk show Oprah Daily's The Life You Want, The State of Weight. Winfrey admitted that she almost used the drug when she underwent a knee surgery. A number of celebrities have turned to using Ozempic for weight loss. Using this drug without a medical prescription can be dangerous. American actor Amber Heard is making a Hollywood comeback with the film called In the Fire. The trailer of the psychiatric thriller was recently released. Heard was seen playing the role of a doctor, and the film is slated to release on the 13th of October this year.